They lied to you from the very beginning. They told you pity was a virtue, that feeling sorry for others was proof of your humanity, that compassion was sacred, that the suffering of others should bend your knees, soften your heart, and guide your choices. But what if this was the greatest trick ever played on you? What if pity was not a virtue at all, but a poison? Nietzsche saw it clearly. He saw what the weak called goodness for what it really was, a leash. He called pity the most dangerous of emotions, a disease that spreads like rot through societies, leaving people weaker, softer, easier to control. You were told pity made you noble. Nietzsche says pity makes you prey. And if you look at your own life with brutal honesty, you'll see it. How many times have you bent your back for someone who never once repaid you? How many times have you taken on the burden of another person's chaos, while your own mission, your own energy, your own life decayed in the background? Every time you pitied someone, you lost. Pity was sold to you as compassion, but in truth, it is a currency, and the one who pities pays the price. The one who is pitied, they collect interest on your weakness. Think about it. You are told to pity the poor, but do they rise because of it? Or do they sink deeper, knowing someone else will always carry them? You are told to pity the broken, but does your pity heal them? Or does it teach them that weakness is rewarded? You are told to pity those who fail, but does your pity make them stronger? Or does it give them permission to stay down? Nietzsche warned us, pity does not uplift, it infects. It spreads weakness like a plague. And here's the brutal truth. Those who demand your pity don't want your help. They want your chains. They want your attention, your energy, your resources. Pity is not love. It is exploitation disguised as virtue. Ask yourself this. When has pity ever made you powerful? When has compassion for those who refuse to fight for themselves ever sharpened your edge, hardened your resolve, or raised your standing in the world? The answer is simple, never. Because pity is not about the strong helping the weak. Pity is the weak draining the strong. It's parasitism dressed as kindness. It's slavery of the spirit. And most people accept their chains willingly because they think they're made of gold. Nietzsche despised this lie. He saw that entire cultures were being built on it. Christianity, democracy, morality, all systems that elevate the suffering of the weak over the strength of the powerful. Systems that glorify the victim while crucifying the conqueror. Systems that turn lions into sheep and call it holiness. And he asked a question few dare to face. What if the highest moral good is not pity, but power? What if your willingness to suffer for others is not virtue, but weakness? What if the world belongs not to those who kneel before the broken, but to those who rise above them, refusing to bow to the guilt that pity demands? That is Nietzsche's law of power. Pity makes you weak, and weakness makes you food. So why do you still cling to it? Why do you still feel guilty when you say no? Why do you still bow to the sob stories, the guilt trips, the emotional blackmail of those who can't or won't rise themselves? Because pity is not just taught, it is engineered. You were conditioned to believe that to be human is to suffer for others, that to be good is to abandon yourself, that to be moral is to place the needs of the weak above your own. But Nietzsche saw through it, and he dared to say what almost no one will. Pity is not love. It is decay. And if you keep feeding it, it will consume you until nothing remains of your strength, your ambition, or your will to dominate. So here's the question you must face. Are you ready to kill your pity before it kills you? They told you morality was sacred. They told you that to be a good man or a good woman meant sacrificing for others, bending for others, bleeding for others. They wrapped pity into every story, every parable, every so-called lesson of goodness. But Nietzsche saw what most were too afraid to admit. Morality itself was built as a cage. Think about it. From the moment you were a child, you were told to share, to give up your toy, to let the other child have the bigger slice, to quiet your hunger for the sake of politeness. And every time you resisted, they didn't call you strong. They didn't call you independent. They called you selfish, as if selfishness was the ultimate crime. But selfishness isn't the crime. Selfishness is survival. It was never about teaching you kindness. It was about teaching you obedience. It was about bending your spine so you'd grow into a servant, because servants are easier to control than rulers. This is the sickness Nietzsche declared war against. He called it slave morality, a system built by the weak to chain the strong, a value system that glorifies humility, pity, and obedience while condemning pride, power, and strength. And the most effective tool of slave morality? Pity. Pity is the emotional weapon that keeps you guilty when you choose yourself. It's the invisible leash tugging on your conscience whenever you try to say no. It's the subtle whisper in your ear. If you don't bend for them, you are cruel. If you don't serve them, you are evil. But here's the brutal irony. The very people who guilt you with pity would never sacrifice the same for you. Think back. How many times did you stay late for someone who would never lift a finger for you? How many times did you carry someone else's burden, only to watch them vanish when you stumbled under your own? How many times did pity keep you trapped in toxic relationships, bleeding yourself dry to save someone who never wanted to be saved? That is the cage. Not made of steel, not made of bars, but built from guilt, expectation, and manipulation. Nietzsche wrote that pity is life-denying. It drags you down to the level of the suffering instead of lifting you to higher ground. It chains you to weakness, to failure, to misery. It makes you waste your strength on those who refuse to rise, and in doing so, it robs you of your destiny. Because here is the truth no one dares to speak. The world does not rise by elevating the weakest. The world rises when the strong are free to create, to conquer, to build. Every great empire was not born from pity. It was born from ambition, from selfish vision, from ruthless clarity. The Romans did not pity their enemies, they crushed them. And from that, civilization expanded. The Renaissance was not born from pity for the weak, but from powerful individuals refusing to be chained by the dogmas of the church. Every innovation, every breakthrough, every work of art that changed the world came not from those drowning in pity, but from those who ignored the cries of the crowd long enough to follow their own obsession. And yet, you were told that pity is noble, that compassion makes you holy, that if you give enough of yourself away, one day the world will thank you. But has the world thanked you, or has it only taken more? Ask yourself, when was the last time your self-sacrifice was rewarded? When was the last time someone truly respected you for giving them everything? They didn't respect you, they expected you. That is why pity is a cage, because the more you give, the more invisible you become. The more you sacrifice, the less value you hold. Until one day, you wake up and realize your life was spent not building your empire, but fueling theirs. This is the lie Nietzsche sought to expose. That morality, as you know it, is not about truth. It's not about virtue. It's about control. Pity is the perfect tool of control. Because once they can make you feel guilty for choosing yourself, you'll hand over your life willingly. And here is the secret. They don't want your goodness. They want your obedience. If pity is the poison, selfishness is the antidote. But the moment you hear that word, selfish, you feel the old conditioning kick in. The guilt, the shame, the voice in your head whispering, selfishness is evil. Selfishness is cruel. Selfishness is wrong. That voice is not yours. That voice was planted in you. The weak needed you to believe that selfishness was a sin, because the moment you embrace it, you no longer bend to them. You no longer bleed for them. You no longer play the role of servant in their script. Nietzsche dared to say what society fears most. Selfishness is not vice. It is clarity. To be selfish is not to hate others. It is to refuse to betray yourself. It is to protect your energy, your focus, your mission with the ferocity of a tyrant. It is to understand that every yes you give away is a no to your own rise. Ask yourself, how much of your life has been spent serving? Serving jobs that drained you, serving people who never respected you, serving causes that gave you nothing in return. And why? Because you were told that saying no would make you selfish. Good. That's exactly what you must become. The selfish are not careless. They are calculated. They spend their time and energy only where it multiplies. They are not cruel. They are clear. They know that every resource, every minute, every breath, every ounce of focus is finite, and they treat it like treasure. While you were exhausting yourself fixing the problems of others, they were building empires. While you were bending to pity, they were mastering power. While you were shrinking yourself to appear noble, they were making themselves untouchable. Do you see the pattern? The world does not reward those who give endlessly. It rewards those who give sparingly, those whose presence is scarce, those who protect themselves so ruthlessly that when they finally offer something, it is seen as priceless. That is the paradox of selfishness. The less you give, the more valuable you become. Think of it like gold. If it were everywhere, in every street, in every hand, it would mean nothing. Its power is in its scarcity. So why have you made yourself common? Why have you made your time cheap, your presence abundant, your energy available to anyone who asks? Every empire, every dynasty, every throne was built not by those who gave without measure, but by those who mastered the art of selfish restraint. And here is the cold truth. If you cannot say no, you will never know power. Nietzsche saw that the highest individuals, the creators, the leaders, the strong, did not drown in pity. They transcended it. They put themselves, their vision, their will to power above the cries of the herd. He called it the Übermensch, the higher human who rises above morality itself, the one who does not bow to the guilt of pity, but carves his own values, his own law, his own destiny. The Übermensch is selfish, not in the petty sense, not in the shallow greed of the small-minded, but in the ruthless clarity of one who refuses to waste his life serving the demands of parasites. And that is what you must become, because if you don't, you will remain what you are now, food for others, a vessel for their needs, a slave decorated in the costume of goodness. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if you chose yourself? What if every decision, every action, every ounce of energy was aligned with your rise, your mission, your empire? What if you stopped apologizing for putting yourself first? The answer is simple. You would be free. You would be feared. You would be powerful. And that is why selfishness is not cruelty. It is survival. It is evolution. It is the first step toward the throne. Because the world does not obey the pitiful. It obeys the powerful. Nietzsche saw pity as decay. Machiavelli saw mercy as suicide. Two men separated by centuries, yet their voices echo the same law. The world does not bend to the soft. It bows to the strong. Machiavelli, writing in the ashes of Italian wars and betrayals, asked a question as sharp as a blade. Is it better to be loved or feared? His answer was cold, unapologetic. It is better to be feared because fear endures where love crumbles. And what is pity but the counterfeit cousin of love? Love can inspire, but pity only drains. Love can build loyalty, but pity builds dependence. Love can create unity, but pity creates parasites. Machiavelli warned rulers, show mercy too often, and your state will rot from within. Your soldiers will disobey. Your people will exploit your softness. Your enemies will smell weakness like blood in the water. And Nietzsche took that warning further. He showed that pity doesn't just weaken rulers, it weakens entire civilizations. A people obsessed with pity glorify the victim. They elevate suffering as virtue. They reward weakness instead of strength. They build monuments not to heroes, but to martyrs. And in doing so, they invite collapse. Look around you. Do you not see it? A culture drowning in pity. Weakness paraded as identity. Victimhood sold as virtue. Everyone demanding to be pitied, to be validated, to be excused. But where are the strong? Where are the rulers? Where are the men and women who refuse to kneel before the altar of weakness? They are few, and that is why they rise above the many. Nietzsche and Machiavelli converge here. Power is not found in generosity, mercy, or pity. Power is found in clarity, scarcity, restraint. The ruler who pities his enemies will be overthrown. The man who pities every beggar will die broke. The woman who pities every manipulator will be drained until nothing remains. And this is where their voices combine into a brutal harmony. Stop explaining. Stop apologizing. Stop pitying. Machiavelli understood appearances matter more than intentions. Nietzsche understood that pity is the mask of control. Together they reveal the paradox of strength, to appear kind strategically, but never to be enslaved by kindness. To use pity as performance if it grants advantage, but never to feel it deeply, because once you feel it, you are chained. Do you see the game? The powerful may appear merciful, they may appear compassionate, they may appear selfless, but beneath the mask is steel, cold, sharp, selfish steel. Think of the kings of history. Did they pity their enemies? No, they crushed them. Yet when needed, they performed mercy, a calculated act to maintain loyalty. Think of the rulers of business, the masters of empire. Do they pity competitors? No, they devour them. Yet when needed, they drape themselves in the costume of giving back, knowing pity sells while power rules. This is the dual law of Nietzsche and Machiavelli. Never feel pity. It weakens your core. If you must, appear merciful. It manipulates perception, because in the end, power respects power, and the one who bleeds for others will be left bleeding alone. So the question is not whether you are good. The question is whether you are untouchable. Ask yourself, would you rather be loved for your weakness or respected for your strength? Would you rather be remembered as a servant who pitied or as a ruler who conquered? The world does not weep for the compassionate. It obeys the uncompromising. Stop. Ask yourself something dangerous. When was the last time your pity made you powerful? When was the last time bending your back for someone else elevated you? When was the last time saying yes out of guilt took you closer to your empire, your vision, your domination of life? You know the answer. It never did. Your pity has only ever been food for parasites. Your guilt has only ever been fuel for manipulators. Your so-called kindness has only ever been a leash around your neck, pulled tighter every time you tried to rise. Think about the people in your life right now. Who drains you? Who thrives on your pity? Who has turned your compassion into their personal lifeline? And here's the more terrifying question. Why do you still allow it? Because somewhere deep inside, you're still afraid of being called selfish. You're still afraid of being painted as cruel, heartless, cold. But ask yourself, who taught you that? It wasn't the powerful. It wasn't the ruthless. It wasn't those who built thrones and carved their names into history. It was the weak. It was those who wanted you obedient, compliant, controlled, and you obeyed. You pitied the friend who never respected you. You pitied the partner who drained you. You pitied the family member who never once sacrificed for you in return. And in doing so, you became weaker every year, every month, every day. Now let me ask you this. What would happen if you cut them off? What would happen if you withdrew your pity, your energy, your endless yes? They would panic. They would rage. They would call you selfish. But beneath their fury would be terror, because the moment you stopped pitying them, you exposed the truth. They were feeding on you. They weren't loyal to you. They were loyal to your sacrifice. And the moment you stopped bleeding for them, they had nothing left. So ask yourself right now, who are you still bleeding for? Who are you still saving? Who are you still pitying, even though every part of your soul knows they would never do the same for you? You know their names. They're already in your mind. The friend who disappears when you need them. The lover who takes more than they give. The family who guilts you into carrying their chaos. The colleagues who drain your energy while contributing nothing. And the harshest truth, they will never change. Because why would they? As long as your pity pays their bills, feeds their needs, and shields them from consequences, why would they ever grow strong? Your pity is their drug, and you are their supplier. So the question becomes this: how much longer will you play the addict's role? How much longer will you sell pieces of your life to people who never once invested in you? Do you not see? Pity has stolen years from you. Pity has robbed you of focus. Pity has kept you average when you were meant to be rare. And unless you break it, unless you stop, it will chain you until you die a nameless servant in someone else's story. You want to know why you're exhausted, why you feel invisible, why your ambition feels dull, lifeless, drained. It's because you've been giving your power away in drops of pity. And power doesn't return when it's spent that way. It vanishes. But the moment you say no, the moment you cut the cord, the moment you reject pity's leash, you begin to rise. Because pity makes you food. Selfishness makes you untouchable. So I'll ask you one final question. When will you stop pitying and start ruling? If you want to break the chains of pity, you need laws. Cold, unflinching rules to live by. Rules that cut through guilt. Rules that protect your energy. Rules that make you untouchable. Here they are. Engrave them in your mind. Law 1. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe explanations. You don't owe softness. You don't owe justification. Every time you explain your no, you give them room to argue. And the moment they argue, you've already surrendered. Stop cushioning rejection. Deliver it cold, final, absolute. Law 2. Scarcity creates power. The more available you are, the less you are respected. Your time must feel expensive. Your presence must feel rare. Your approval must feel like gold, impossible to get, unforgettable to hold. If they can reach you any time, you are nothing. If they must wait, if they must fight, if they must prove themselves, your value multiplies. Law 3. Guilt is a leash. Burn it. Every time guilt whispers, "You're selfish," remember, guilt is the language of control. They want you chained by obligation. They want you bleeding for them without protest. Cut that leash. Burn it. Walk away unshackled. Law 4. Pity is poison. Never drink it. When someone demands your pity, see the trap. Weakness wants you to join it. Misery wants company. Their suffering is not your mission. Let them face their chaos. If they rise, respect them. If they sink, let them drown. It is not your job to save those who refuse to swim. Law 5. Selfishness is clarity, not cruelty. To be selfish is to see the truth. Your time, your focus, your energy are finite. They are currencies. You cannot give them freely without going broke. The cruel are reckless. The selfish are precise. Spend only where your investment grows. Law 6. Power is preserved, not shared. Stop giving your secrets. Stop giving your strategies. Stop giving your attention to everyone who asks. The moment you give freely, you lose leverage. Hold back. Withhold. Let them earn what you reveal. Law 7. Absence is power. The more you are seen, the more they forget you. The more they can reach you, the less they desire you. Disappear often. Withdraw deliberately. Make silence your weapon. Mystique is more powerful than presence. Law 8. Boundaries are crowns. Your boundaries are not lines in the sand. They are walls of a fortress. The weak hate them. They will call you arrogant, cold, selfish. Let them. Because every time they hit your wall and fail to climb it, you remind them, you are not theirs to use. You are sovereign. Law 9. Loyalty must be earned, never given. Stop pledging loyalty to those who would never bleed for you. Stop giving devotion to those who see you as disposable. Loyalty is sacred, it is currency, and only those who bring value should ever taste it. Law 10. Remember the paradox of power. The less you give, the more they want. The more you refuse, the more your yes becomes priceless. The strong are not respected for giving everything. They are respected for holding back. Engrave these laws, live by them, break them, and you return to slavery. Obey them, and you rise above the herd. Because in the economy of power, nothing is free. Not your time, not your presence, not your loyalty, not your pity. Everything has a price. The strong make others pay it. The weak pay it themselves. So ask yourself, are you done paying, or will you start charging? This is where it all leads. Every pity you gave, every yes you whispered through clenched teeth, every drop of strength you bled for people who never deserved it. This is where the lie ends. You were not born to be a savior. You were not born to be a sacrificial lamb. You were not placed on this earth to pity endlessly, to give endlessly, to weaken yourself for the comfort of parasites. You were born to rise, to dominate, to carve your name into stone, while others drown in the mud. And yet, look at how much of your life has been wasted on pity. How much of your empire never got built because you were too busy building theirs. How many hours, days, years vanished into the black hole of helping, serving, being kind. This is the moment you must decide. Will you keep bleeding for the herd, or will you evolve into something untouchable? Nietzsche called it the Übermensch, the higher human, the one who breaks free from the slave morality of pity and obedience, who rises above the lies of guilt and compassion, who forges his own law, his own values, his own destiny. Do you understand how dangerous that makes you? The world fears those who stop pitying, because once you stop, they lose control. The manipulators can no longer guilt you. The weak can no longer drain you. The parasites can no longer feed on you. They will call you cold. They will call you heartless. They will call you selfish. Good. That's the proof you're free, because when people can no longer control you, they attack your morality. They say you've changed. They say you've lost yourself. They say you've become cruel. But what they really mean is this: you are no longer theirs to use. And that is the birth of power. Power does not begin with money. It does not begin with armies. It does not begin with crowns or titles. It begins with one word: no. Cold. Final. Unapologetic. No to pity. No to guilt. No to bleeding for those who would never bleed for you. No to being invisible, drained, disposable. No to wasting your empire on people who will never build their own. That is the first step of evolution. From there, everything changes. Your yes becomes priceless. Your time becomes sacred. Your presence becomes heavy with gravity. You shift from servant to sovereign, from food to predator, from tool to force. And the world notices. They begin to hesitate before asking. They begin to respect what they once took for granted. They begin to realize that access to you, must now be earned. That is when you stop being pitied and you start being feared. That is when you stop being used and you start being respected. That is when you stop being a background character in their story and you become the ruler of your own. This is not cruelty. This is evolution, because pity is slavery, selfishness is survival, and only those who choose themselves ever rise beyond the herd. So now the question is no longer about them. It is about you. Will you keep kneeling before weakness, drowning in guilt, feeding parasites who never once earned your sacrifice? Or will you rise? Will you harden your heart, sharpen your focus, and embrace the selfishness that makes you dangerous, untouchable, undeniable? You know the answer. You've known it all along. The herd will always call you selfish, but history will call you powerful. If this pierced you, if it tore through the lies you were taught about pity and sacrifice, then you already know what to do. Stop apologizing, stop explaining, stop bleeding for everyone who would never bleed for you. Guard your time, guard your energy, guard your empire, because no one else will. And if this message woke something cold and powerful inside you, if it reminded you of who you were meant to be, then don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who's been giving too much for far too long. Subscribe to this channel and join the rising force of those who refuse to kneel. Comment below and tell me, what pity are you killing today? What chains are you burning? Because this is not entertainment. This is war. And every word, every law, every choice we make brings us closer to one truth. The world doesn't need more pitiful people. It needs more unshakable ones. Be selfish, be clear, be powerful, and never, ever apologize for it.